It's hard to watch someone you love destroy themselves harder still when that person is your own child. For T.I., the man who built his life from nothing but struggle and ambition, watching his son King Harris spiral out of control feels like watching a reflection of his own past, one he fought so hard to escape. And yet, there's nothing he can do to stop it. Because the truth is, sometimes love isn't enough. Sometimes, even a father with all the power, money, and wisdom in the world can't reach the child standing right in front of him. This is the heartbreaking story of a father forced to stand on the sidelines helpless as his son walks straight into the fire he once escaped from. When people think of T.I., they think of the trap legend, the man who came from the streets of Atlanta and turned pain into power. A hustler who clawed his way up, who wore his past like armor, not shame. He was the definition of self-made. Every lyric, every move was built from experience. He lived the life his music described. But King Harris, his son, was born into a different world, a world of luxury, cameras, and expectations. From the moment he could walk, he wasn't just T.I.'s son, he was the prince of a hip-hop empire. Reality TV cameras followed him on T.I. and Tiny, the family hustle. Millions watched him grow up in designer clothes, surrounded by fame and privilege. But fame doesn't raise you. And privilege doesn't protect you from pain. King grew up chasing something he never had to survive the streets. While his father spent his youth running from police and dodging traps, King was running from something else entirely, the shadow of his father's greatness. T.I. had built a name so powerful it became both a blessing and a curse for his children. And for King, that shadow grew heavy. He wanted to be seen as real, not as T.I.'s spoiled son. He wanted to be respected, but the problem was, he didn't know how to earn it the way his father did. So, he tried to force it. That's when the cracks started showing. At first, it was harmless bravado, the kind of confidence young men wear like armor. He bragged online, talked tough, flexed cars and cash. It was performance, but the lines between image and identity started to blur. Then came the viral moments, the arguments, the fights, the arrests. The world watched that infamous scene at the Falcons game, father and son clashing in front of cameras, shouting about who really had it harder. King yelling that he wasn't raised in privilege, insisting he came up in the trenches. The crowd laughed, but for T.I., it wasn't funny. It was a punch to the heart. He knew that look, the pride, the defiance, the pain hiding behind it. It was the same look he once gave his own elders. But this time, he was the father on the receiving end. What nobody saw was what came after the cameras stopped rolling. T.I. sitting in silence, realizing that no matter how much he provided, his son still felt empty. It's a tragedy as old as time, the father who fought to give his child everything, only to realize he gave them too much of the wrong things. The real breaking point came when King's name hit headlines again, not for music, not for business, but for trouble. Arrested, booked, filmed, the mugshot went viral. And once again, the internet turned it into a joke. Memes, comments, think pieces, everyone had something to say about T.I.'s son trying to act street. But for T.I., it wasn't a joke. It was a nightmare replaying in slow motion. He'd spent years dodging the system, working to keep his name clean, fighting to protect his legacy, only to see his child walk straight into the same world he risked everything to escape. And the worst part? He couldn't fix it. He could post messages. He could pull strings behind the scenes. But he couldn't change the choices his son was making. That's the thing about parenthood, it's not about control, it's about watching. You can teach, you can guide, but you can't force someone to learn. So, T.I. watched. He watched his son chase validation online, trying to prove he was real. He watched him laugh through mugshots, turning pain into performance. He watched people mock his parenting, saying fame ruined his family. And through it all, he stayed silent, not out of pride, but out of heartbreak. Behind closed doors, though, the silence wasn't peace. Friends say T.I. tried everything: long talks, tough love, even walking away. But nothing seemed to reach King. Because King wasn't listening to his father, he was listening to the world. The social media world that rewards chaos. The rap culture that praises danger. The followers who cheer for bad decisions like their episodes in a TV show. And T.I., who had once fought to make rap a path out of the streets, was now watching his son treat it like a ticket back in. Imagine that pain. The same man who built an empire on lyrics about struggle and survival now watching his own child glamorize the very things he once tried to protect him from. That's the cruel irony of success. Your children get to live the life you dreamed of, but they'll never understand the cost it took to build it. Then came the video's king on Instagram Live, arguing, boasting, confronting random people like he had something to prove. One moment he's flashing jewelry, the next he's threatening to fight. It was chaos, a young man screaming for respect, but not realizing he was losing it in real time. And every time one of those videos surfaced, fans looked to T.I. for a reaction. Would he defend him? Would he discipline him? But T.I. mostly stayed quiet. And that silence said more than words ever could. You could see it in his eyes when he finally addressed it publicly, that mixture of anger and heartbreak that only a father can feel. He said, "You can't protect grown men from themselves." And that's when people realized the truth. T.I. wasn't ignoring his son's pain. He just couldn't save him anymore. Because sometimes, love means letting go. And that's what T.I. was forced to do. He had to let King fall, not because he didn't care, but because he cared too much. Because some lessons can only be learned through pain. But watching your child learn that way? That's the kind of pain no parent should ever have to feel. Every time King made headlines, every time fans mocked their relationship, T.I. had to relive his own past. The arrests. The street fights. The moments when his own mother begged him to change. Now he was the one begging silently, praying his son would wake up before it was too late. But fame can be louder than wisdom. And pride can drown out love. The irony is, King isn't a bad kid. He's just lost trying to find himself in a world that never gave him a fair shot at authenticity. He didn't grow up poor, but he still craved the respect that comes from surviving the struggle. He wanted to be known for more than being T.I.'s son. He wanted to build his own name even if it meant destroying the one he inherited. And that's the painful truth about legacy. It can inspire you or break you. For T.I., legacy was survival. For King, it became a burden. People often forget that behind the cameras, T.I. is still a father, one who changed his entire life for his kids. He built businesses, wrote books, mentored young artists, all to create a different path for his children. But what happens when the next generation doesn't want that path? When they crave the struggle you bled to escape? That's the tragedy of this story. Because deep down, King's rebellion isn't about fame or crime, it's about identity. It's a young man fighting to be seen as his own person, not as an extension of someone else's greatness. But the way he's going about it, the arrests, the outbursts, the pride, it's destroying the very thing he's trying to protect. And T.I. knows it. He knows that fame doesn't forgive. The internet doesn't forget. And once your reputation starts to crumble, rebuilding it takes more than a last name. That's why he's stepped back, not because he's given up, but because he knows King has to find his own bottom before he can climb back up. It's a lesson T.I. learned the hard way. And now, it's King's turn. The public might see a spoiled celebrity kid acting out, but behind the headlines, this is a father and son story about pride, pain, and the fight to be understood. T.I. once said, "Experience is the best teacher, but sometimes, the tuition is too expensive." He's watching that play out now. Watching his son pay for lessons he tried to teach him for free. And that's what makes it so tragic. Because no matter how far King falls, no matter how many headlines or viral moments, there's one thing that remains: his father's love. But love alone can't change destiny. So where does this story go from here? That depends on King. He's standing at a crossroads, one path leading toward redemption, the other toward destruction. He's already seen the price of chasing the wrong kind of respect. He's already felt what it's like to be mocked, to be misunderstood, to be seen as the failure in a family of success. But there's still time. T.I. isn't waiting to say, "I told you so." He's waiting to say, "Welcome home." Because at the end of the day, behind the fame and the money, behind the cameras and the chaos, it's still just a father and his son both fighting to understand each other in a world that won't stop watching. Maybe King will turn it around. Maybe he'll use this fall as fuel. Maybe the same fire that made his father great still burns inside him, waiting to be lit the right way. But until that happens, T.I. can only do one thing: watch. Watch, hope, and pray that his son learns before it's too late. Because for all the power he's gained, the hardest truth T.I. has ever faced is this: you can protect your empire, but you can't protect your children from themselves. And that's the cruel reality of fame. It gives you everything, except control over the ones you love.